Where do we get that hoarding mentality from? You keep hoarding clothes and you still feel like you don't have enough.
Social media, it really propels people into that rabbit wheel of trying to just get more and more style.
People only use about 20% of their wardrobe. And what social media does, it feeds you of like what you need to look. So when you open that wardrobe, you're expecting to have that.
The role of fashion influencers when it comes to choosing their bread and butter and also not working with these brands, is there an alternative?
That's one of the challenges, I guess, for fashion because it's very emotional.
Sometimes I think in fashion, it could be a grey area. Having a hard no to certain things, having a grey area to help to work with certain brands to get them to become more sustainable. I think that's also a very noble way to utilize their platform. I realized that whenever I buy a piece of this fast fashion, I'm actually making someone else who's a lot poorer than I am, less privileged sort of circumstances, pay for something that I'm wearing. And that to me was just like, it's unacceptable.
We've got two inspiring changemakers who've shaped sustainable fashion in not just Singapore, but all of Asia. Raye Padit, the founder of Fashion Pulpit, and Raena Lim, the co-founder of Style Theory. You run the biggest swap platform in all of Southeast Asia, and you run the biggest fashion rental platform in all of Southeast Asia as well. Thank you for being here with me today, and welcome to Sustainability with Shreya.
Of course. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
I'm so glad. I don't think you both know how much you've shaped my sustainable fashion journey. So I used to live in Singapore until 2019. And I'm pretty sure I was one of the first few users of Style Theory. I subscribed to the platform in 2017. I had never rented clothes before. I'd never, dipped my toes into the secondhand fashion space. And from 2017 to 2019, for as long as I used Style Theory, I'm telling you, I never bought a single piece of clothing.
Oh, wow.
In 2 years, I didn't buy anything because it gave me the freedom to be so experimental with my fashion. I could get new clothes every week without owning them, without breaking the bank. And that gave me the confidence to try styles that I would have otherwise never tried. That gave me to experiment, with who I was and to express that differently. So I don't know if you knew that, but you've definitely shaped that journey and you've changed my mind about sustainable fashion and secondhand fashion so much. And I've done a lot of swaps with you as well. But, the key problem is even while I was using Style Theory and, the times that I was waiting for my new box to come back, whenever I opened my wardrobe, you look at the amount of clothes you have and it doesn't matter how many clothes you have, you still go, oh my God, I have nothing to wear. The wardrobe might be bursting. Mm-hmm. There might be no space in the wardrobe, but you still look at it and you're like, I have nothing to wear. Where do we, get that hoarding mentality from? You keep hoarding clothes and you still feel like you don't have enough. Firstly, where does it come from? And then how do we begin changing that? I'll start with you, Ray.
With me? Okay, sure. I think Raena can start first because that's how she started her business.
All right, I'll start with you, Raena.
Thanks for sharing your story, Shreya. I think you don't know how important it is for everyone at Style Theory to hear stories like that, because when we first started, we are just like, some people think it was very 50-50. People think that, oh, no one's gonna ever rent, who's gonna rent for day to day? Maybe for a wedding? Yeah, sure. But day to day, to the office, to go out for brunch, to go to my child's recital? No way, But there's another group of people who says, hey, this sounds kind of cool and innovative. Let me give it a shot. And I think that was that group of people that kind of helped build Style Theory to where it is today. So otherwise, I don't think we'll be able to do what we want to do in this space, in this region. So I had this problem where I open my wardrobe and I'm just like, I have nothing to wear. And my husband goes, are you crazy? Isn't that clothes? Like, you don't even have enough space to put in more clothes. Like, what do you mean by you have nothing to wear? And I'm just like, yeah, but I don't feel it. I just don't feel like wearing that white jumpsuit. I know I haven't worn it for the past 1 year, but I don't feel like it. And I think that's just a very, I don't know if it's a very female-centric problem, but when we start speaking with a lot of different female, all of them say, yeah, I have nothing to wear in the morning. Every morning, I don't know what I'm going to wear, and I start buying more clothes. And those clothes just end up sitting back into the wardrobe with the tags, and they are not being worn. So what is it that is preventing people from wearing it? What is that mental, sort of block honestly, I think that's a age-old problem. No one really know truly why, but I think a lot of women likes the feeling of having a lot of clothes for that one day event that might happen where, oh, I have a Gatsby event, oh, I have that perfect dress, and then they feel good about it. But how often in the past 5 years have we been to a Gatsby event, right?
Not me.
Yeah, right. Or like, oh, I want to have like that very uptown look. And how often are we going to do that? Or that Barbie pink look, once in the past 10 years. So I think we like to buy clothes for those occasions that happen so rarely that we actually don't need those items. But that security that we have, that we can afford to have that in our own bedroom, in our own closet, I think just give people a lot of comfort. And I think with social media, it really propels people into that rabbit wheel of like trying to just get more and more style, whether it's their style or not, but it's trending. Let me just get it. Maybe I'll like it. Maybe I'll not. Let's buy it since it's cheap, right? So I think there's a lot of all these different factors that, feed into this like hoarding mentality, feeling like they need to change clothes all the time. And I think that's what we wanted Style Theory to help with. We wanted to provide them with all the options that they have, regardless what style you are in, what phase of life you're in, what sizes you're in, what event you're going to, you're going to find something, because this is a cloud wardrobe that's shared across all women in Singapore. And when you have this combined wardrobe, it's going to be so huge that it's no longer financially sustainable for any one person to own a wardrobe this big. So you're going to find clothes. So I think that's our vision, to build that cloud wardrobe. And we're still building on it till today. Yeah, 7 years in.
That's so cool. Thank you for existing, and thank you for starting my journey in the sustainable fashion space.
Thank you. Thank you for trying us out and giving us that boost. Yeah.
I think I was this affiliate marketing person or an influencer without being an influencer, because I used to tell everyone about Style Theory back in the day.
Oh,
I
You're
used
the
to scream about
ambassador.
it. Yeah, so I've definitely done my share of influencing with Style Theory for sure. And I was proud of it. A lot of times people shy away from, telling someone that, hey, this is rented, or this is, pre-loved, and I'm renting it from this platform. But for some reason, I felt so good about the clothes that I was wearing, and they were so stylish and sexy and glamorous at the same time that I kind of felt cool for being this person that wasn't buying clothes or hoarding.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that we want to empower more women to feel that way, to let them know that when they are into sustainable fashion, it's a good thing. It's a great like badge to be wearing.
Absolutely.
Instead of feeling shame, that it's kind of like, I think in the older mindset, I think people tend to carry that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on hoarding,
I mean,
overconsumption?
I think I have a similar story with Raena, but not personally, because I started as a fashion designer. And then that was the only gateway for me to be part of the industry, because I didn't know anything about other jobs in the industry. So for me, that was my entry point. And even that I was not 100% sure about creating new things, but because that was the only way for me, then I did it. And discovering the whole negative aspect of the fashion industry, that proved the point of like, the world doesn't need another designer
Would you
who's
like to
gonna
touch
make.
upon the negative aspect and what you discovered?
I mean, like the whole social and environmental aspect, the whole numbers of like how much pollution we're creating, textile waste, and the garment workers being affected by the industry. So it's like, you know what? I love to be in the industry, and that's the only industry that I can see myself being part of. But if I would want to be part of it, I need to change the way I want to be part of it. So, and that's where the Secondhand came about, because I had a nonprofit after doing the designing part. So the nonprofit was really to share about what's happening in the industry, because 5 years, 6 years ago, it was not readily available in social media. So we wanted it to be accessible by everyone, and hopefully they would also change their perspective about what fashion is. So with that nonprofit, sure, we have gained knowledge and accessibility, but we didn't really have a tangible action to it. So we had like a survey of understanding what's happening within our wardrobe. And based from that survey, people only use about 20% of their wardrobe. So, and also knowing globally, that's about the same number. So what happens then to the 70-80% of what we have? And the same thing of like, the problem of like, there's nothing that I wear. But I think essentially what we have observed and have, based from the different discussion from individuals, it will boils down to two aspects. Like one, because our wardrobe, you don't see everything that you have. And you would always, when you open it up, you don't have the time to like scan through. So the tendency is like, I have nothing to wear, even if you have that much. So what social media does, it feeds you of like what you need to look. So when you open that wardrobe, you're expecting to have that. Like, I don't want to get things and wear it, but I want it to be like presented. So that becomes a challenge. And the second one is that I think growing up, the idea of having a walk-in wardrobe is the aspiration, right? So that being having that goal, obviously, is you need to accumulate for you to be able to build that dream walk-in wardrobe that we have. So that's the tendency of like us hoarding and keeping things even if we don't use it, because of that idea. And it's glorified nowadays. I mean, but I think it's going to be obsolete because I think the future would be a shared wardrobe. But essentially, that's the idea of having why we have so much and nothing to wear problem.
I think Sex and the City is a very big culprit of
right?
that. Yes,
Yeah.
that whole Carrie Bradshaw's wardrobe.
Yeah.
Everyone wants that.
Yeah.
So many of my girlfriends actually make sure they have a walk-in wardrobe. And when I challenge them on the idea of a walk-in wardrobe, I'm just like, do you know that you're paying rent on
Exactly,
that wardrobe? And then that's when they are like, oh yeah, that's true.
The cost.
Yeah, the cost of actually doing that is actually a lot. And you're not utilizing 80% of that. That's
true.
like, yeah,
So it's what's sold to us as aspirational, what's sold to us as covetable and something that we should aspire to be. Those ideas in itself are so unsustainable, even on an individual level, that it's hard to challenge it. And I think they're so ingrained in us that we want more and more. Is it more acceptable for men to wear the same outfit and for men to repeat the outfits than it is for women? Because if you were to wear that exact same outfit every single day, I bet you'd get eyeballs.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I can survive that though, because I find that dressing up lifts your mood in very different ways. There are days where you want to feel cool and chic and edgy, and there are days that you just want to feel girly and floral.
That's
and
true.
then you just want your clothing to help you to lift your mood in that way.
My hormones determine my fashion.
Time of the month.
Yeah, time of the month definitely determines
Yeah.
how I feel and what I want to wear.
But it's true, right? Time of the month actually determine what color you're gonna wear,
Absolutely.
right? White pants or no white pants.
Yeah.
So
that too. Yeah.
So I think definitely it's harder for a female to go down that route. And when I look at my husband when he dressed, sometimes I can't really remember whether he's wearing the same thing or not, because all his stuff just kind of looks quite similar. So I can see how guys can get away with it easier than a woman will.
So the more minimalist capsule wardrobe approach is just somehow suited better for them. Imagine, but harder.
Yeah, I think it's a very intriguing topic also, because there would be women who would thrive in that arrangement. But I think that's one of the challenges, I guess, for fashion, because it's very emotional.
Yes.
Like all our decision is based on that. Like, what are you gonna wear and how much you're gonna wear it, or
am I feeling this today?
Yeah, exactly. And then it leads to accumulation. And I guess that's why our businesses exist, because we wanted to, provide solution to that, being emotional and building that relationship, but at the same time, at whose expense? So we don't want that, obviously, for the environment or the social aspect that would pay for that. So I guess that's why we exist.
Yeah. Have all the choices you want, do that, but not, contribute to the waste and all the environmental impacts that comes with buying and throwing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I love that you said fashion is emotional, which is exactly what it is. But why do we still buy fast fashion, knowing the bad aspects of it, knowing the Rana Plaza disaster that happened, knowing the human cost behind fast fashion, and the environmental aspect also, obviously. But if someone is aware of all of these things and they still choose to buy from a fast fashion brand, why do you think that is? And how do we begin to make fast fashion obsolete?
Wow. It's a big question.
It is. I think affordability comes to mind as the first one. I think fast fashion is cheap and it's very convenient. You can easily get it anywhere. And I think that's one of the biggest driver for people today. I think I read in a World Bank's report where like 1/3 of the world's consumption waste actually come from developed country, even though developed country actually accounts for like maybe 16% of the total sort of like population.
Yeah.
So I think that imbalance is really driving a lot of this waste in fast fashion as well, because I think in developed countries, you're also a lot more removed from like the issues that you mentioned on human rights and stuff, right? It's happening in a developing country. We don't see it. So we continue to consume. Even though we kind of know about it, but you kind of remove from it. It's a little bit like when people eats meat, but they don't want to see the animal being slaughtered, right? It's kind of removed from the process. So, and then they don't feel the guilt that comes with it. And I think then affordability comes into play, the convenience of it. And also fast fashion company, they tend to have a bigger marketing budget. So you tend to hear about them everywhere. They are sponsoring all your fashion influencers. So they are all that people talk about. And sustainable brands, they are taking on a lot more costs on their own because they are not passing on all the costs to the environment or to people down the supply chain. And
They're
I think
fair wages as well.
Exactly.
They're actually paying people what they deserve.
Yeah, so their marketing budget, rightly so, will be a lot smaller, right? Just by the nature of things. And I think then people hear less of them, then people know less of them. So I think it becomes a very vicious cycle that just keep propelling itself. And honestly, I think we have spoke about this at length, with so many different sort of players, and government really needs to step in to really level the playing field between the sustainable fashion group versus the fast fashion group, so that they can all actually play on the same ground for a start, and not unfairly penalize the sustainable group for actually caring about all these costs that comes with it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think also we have to look back of like how fast fashion started. And I mean, obviously the intention was not to harm the environment, but it's the effect of it, because the whole idea of the fast fashion, like the big companies who started it, was to democratize fashion. Like it should be affordable by everyone to dress up and express themselves through clothes, because it's a way of communicating who you are and stuff like that. And in the beginning, it was amazing to be able to afford in whatever economic status you are in, but at the same time, the direct effect with that unknowingly was because the environment and the people who are making our clothes are suffering because of that idea. And it becomes so hard for us to go back all the way to reinventing the wheel, because that has been the system that has been created, what fast fashion is all about. So even if we know the whole negative impact of fashion, as what Raina's mentioned, we're so detached. Like, yes, we're hearing about the problems that we are creating because of fashion. At that moment, we would sympathize. But once we see someone that, wearing the latest trend, or, we tend to forget that. And I think also fashion is about being acknowledged, and there's a sense of belongingness. So if you feel like you're wearing the same thing, like you found your community and stuff like that. So again, it's that the emotion that prevails in that very right moment, which is, again, the good thing is, like, because it's very emotional, we could always convince them to change that behavior. But it takes time, because obviously of the system that when we grow up, obviously all the things that we know is just to shop fast fashion, because that was the existing system already. So to somehow challenge that, it would take some time.
Yeah, definitely.
Affordability is a big one.
It is. I mean, I love fast fashion growing up. I mean, I could buy so many things with the tiny budget that I have.
Yeah.
I could dress up. I love it so much. I think what really changed for me was when I realized that when I was working and I had a little bit more income, I realized that whenever I buy a piece of this fast fashion, I'm actually making someone else who's a lot poorer than I am in a less privileged sort of circumstances pay for something that I'm wearing, because they are not getting a fair wage. And that to me was just like, it's unacceptable. So then that's when I started to stop buying fast fashion. But I think that also came with time, because a lot of all this sort of awareness was not made known, right? I think these days there's a lot of research, a lot of people coming out to shed light on this. And I think that consumers are getting more and more aware of like, what does it mean? But sometimes I think consumer needs reminder.
Yeah, a constant reminder.
Annoying reminders.
Like, excuse me,
yeah, that's true. But even if you don't care about, it's hard for people to maybe empathize with, like you said, the workers in the supply chain, or them not getting proper wages, or the environmental aspect of it. But I found out recently that it's actually even bad for your own skin. Like the materials that they use. Let's just talk about our own health and what it does wearing these cheap synthetic fibers, what it's doing to, whether the laundry or how it's coming back to us, and water that we consume, microplastics, right? So even if it's just about our own body and what it means to wear these glossy, full of chemicals fabrics on our own skin, why isn't no one talking about that?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I think that's why sustainability is such a difficult topic, right? Because is sustainable fabric better, or is polyester fabric better? I think that's a very big debate on that, because polyester can go through like, I don't know, hundreds of 200s of wear with it still, being fairly intact. And sustainable fabric, because of the nature of it, it's supposed to break down, over time. And with that, you increase the production of clothing to kind of like supply for that demand that is still growing in the market. So I think it's not an easy equation on which is better, but definitely the way that people do it, like, lead using like lead in the clothing above like a certain safe limit and stuff like that, that's a straight no. But there's so much gray area that sustainable fashion is still trying to figure out as a whole, whether in terms of like government policy or as all the different textile association. I think everyone's trying to kind of figure out a certain guideline to help to guide the entire fashion community towards a better route on how to use fashion better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned social media and the role of social media and promoting these trends and these fast fashion hauls, and people have the amount of money, the amount of clothes that you can get with small amount of money, right? What can fashion influencers do better? How can social media be an agent for change? I've never seen people openly repeating outfits as well, right? Every location there's a different outfit, every picture there's a different outfit. And there are obviously sustainable ways of doing that, whether that's with swapping or renting clothes. So if you still want to have that aesthetic, there's obviously better ways of doing it and achieving the same thing instead of buying. But also this perception that if I'm going to rent this outfit for a particular amount and I'm only going to wear it once, I might as well spend that same amount of money and own an outfit. So that the psychology of ownership, do you think ownership is overrated, or what's your take on owning clothes and not renting them or swapping or thrifting?
We can go.
Yeah, I think I would not say that ownership is overrated, but at the same time there is space to challenge that perspective, because obviously there's still that part of us who wants security, as what you've mentioned a while ago, that anytime I need it, it's available. But at the same time, I think the whole sustainability discussion in fashion would not have happened if we have started in the right way. But obviously, nobody would not know if this is the right or the wrong way. And the reason why we have exist, because we wanted to provide a platform or an alternative platform that people can be part of and still continue with their lifestyle. And that's why I've said like there is a space to challenge that perspective, because obviously in the 21st century there are alternative, like you have no excuse to not be part of that sustainable movement, because now there's alternative for you to be using. So I think yes, there's space for that, but at the same time there's way other ways to challenge that perspective.
Yeah, definitely. But I think because as a someone who suffer with that problem, I actually thought that I was so stupid. What was I thinking? Why am I buying so much, putting it inside the wardrobe, and then at every spring cleaning, I would just take them out, put them inside plastic bag, and then donate it away. And then knowing that the donation actually just go into landfill, it's it's just like something that I didn't know that I was contributing to. So the whole thing just didn't make sense to me when you step back and rethink about, your lifestyle, your choices. And honestly, I'm at the stage of my life where I don't really want so many things at home as well, because it's just cluttering. And, I think the whole world kind of moved through that phase. That's why Marie Kondo's method became so popular. And, she had a Netflix series, right? Because people are really feeling like, I have too much. What am I going to do with all these things? In terms of fire, what am I going to grab? None of these things. All these don't matter. So why am I hoarding all these things? Why am I stressing myself that I need to have more and more when I don't need more and more? So I do think that today people are coming more and more to that realization, and especially in areas like Hong Kong, Singapore, where space is actually getting expensive, they are like, oh, okay, I really have too much. Where are all these things going to go? So I think that pushed people.
Storage facilities just to keep all their stuff.
Exactly.
It's like you storage after storage, you build wardrobe after wardrobe just to fit all the stuff that you have, and it's never enough.
Never enough. And I think that's where people are starting to look for solution. And I think this is something that is great for the space where if people are actually looking for solution, then we are there to provide the solution, right? And it's not just going to be me and Raye, but there will be more and more students coming out of fashion school, aspiring to do things, and providing very unique ways for people to interact with fashion that's a lot more sustainable.
Yeah. I know so many businesses. I'm talking about India. I don't know if this applies to the larger context here as well. But there have been so many businesses in either, thrift stores or swapping platforms or clothing rental that have tried to grow and scale. But because of the stigma that exists around wearing secondhand fashion, they've gone out of business. What do you attribute your business success to? And what do you think other founders who are trying to grow these models in different geographies, what do they need to know?
Wow.
I think definitely there is some stigma, but I do think that is really coming down very quickly. At least in our space, we do see that people, for the past 7 years, people are more receptive to renting. I mean, we hear things like, oh, why don't a friend recommending another friend saying, why don't you think about renting, since you might not wear it again? So I think that is a really great start for all conversation, right? Just to think about the alternative. Do I really need to buy this? And then just pause and have that moment. So I think that's going to be more and more prevalent. And I think that's great. But on Asian mindset of like, wanting to wear something new, wanting to have something that you get to wear first, I think there is still some of that. But I do think that is a lot less of a problem compared to, like, say, 10 years ago.
It's become like a thing of celebration. Like every Chinese New Year, every Diwali, every Christmas, you'd wait to buy that one outfit.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, now we buy it whenever without an occasion as well.
Yeah.
You don't wait. You don't need an occasion. Yeah,
Buying is the occasion.
Yeah.
So, just that mentality that understanding how businesses have gone out of business.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, it does exist up until now because, like, for us, we're a physical space where everyone comes in, and some of them may not know that it is a secondhand, but once we told them that it is a secondhand, they will just walk away right away. Yeah. So it is still existing that we have to, but what I have seen and observed is that the belief is it's a pass-on belief that has not been challenged, but because there's platforms who provides you to debunk those myths about secondhand, it's easier for someone to tell them, like, it's not, you just wash it. If you feel like it's unhygienic. So that's the purpose of washing. And the whole idea of, like, secondhand is less fashion, but actually it's more fashion because you can experiment, as what you have mentioned. You can try things that you would not imagine trying if you would have to invest it if buying new. So I think it's really just experiential. I would say once they get into it, they would understand, like, the belief that I had before doesn't make sense. I just have to step in and really experience that. But yeah, we have to do our thing also of, trying to educate people and make secondhand aspirational, because that's what fashion is all about, for them to be open-minded and to welcome wearing secondhand.
Yeah. What are the biggest myths around secondhand fashion or sustainable fashion that you've come across?
That I think you are poor, so that then you
Yes,
have to
that's a
go
big
for
one.
secondhand stuff. I do think that there are still people who believes in that. But today, I think we start to see secondhand fashion more than just thrift shops. It's really also about, even luxury fashion is also coming into the resale space. I think there's a few like luxury sort of bags designer who actually holds their own secondhand as well. Because I think it's just about believing in the quality of the item that you have already created and knowing how long it can last in the ecosystem without it actually going to the landfill or just sitting in a wardrobe. So I think that is still something that still exists today here. And I'm hoping that with better infrastructure in the resale space, with more players coming in to help to educate, that is gonna slowly kind of go away.
Yeah, that's a big one. Coming from a lower socioeconomic status, if you rent, thrift, swap, wear secondhand, wear pre-loved, that's such a big one, because that's when people would almost look down on you as why are you doing it? Do you not have the money to buy new clothes? Why are you being cheap? All of these things get thrown at you.
Yeah.
That's definitely a big one.
We have a few members who had the same sentiment about that. Like, for example, their middle child, and they would be like, I've always been growing up pass on clothes with my clothes. I mean, the clothes from my siblings. And then when they started working, that was like, a pure satisfaction for them to buy new things. So why would I buy secondhand when this is my chance? So, those are the things that they have experienced and obviously wanted to change that. But again, knowing the impact of fashion, everyone becomes open to exploring alternatives. And that, I think, a good way for us to experiment.
Yeah. I think hand-me-downs are so cool. I don't know why people have that mindset, because I live out of my sister's and my mom's wardrobe.
Right.
I wait for them to buy something just so I don't have to buy anything. And I think that's the OG cloud wardrobe. You borrowing from your friends, your girlfriends, your sister, your mom. That was cloud wardrobe before that word existed. And, we always shared and we always, use whatever we had.
Yeah. You text your friend, right? Hey, do you have a red dress? I have an event coming up.
Yeah.
Can I borrow that, right?
Yeah, so we always had that in the community, but just to make that wider and to get other people into that shared wardrobe, that's basically what you both are doing, which is super cool.
Yeah, and I think when we survey a lot of our subscribers and people who were thinking of subscribing, I think it was quite interesting to see that shift over time, right? Because a lot of the subscribers on our platform, they are actually very powerful women in their own areas. We have CEOs, we have ministers who are, subscribers on our platform. We have actresses, all people who are very earning really good money in their own area. But they are still renting, not because they are trying to be cheap, but because they know that that is a better lifestyle for their fashion consumption. And I think that has slowly starts to, once people experience that for themselves, that's when they realize that, actually, I could consume fashion in this way. But I think the hard part is to first get people to convince them to even give it a shot.
Yeah.
I think once they give it a shot, I think they can see how that lifestyle is actually so much more sustainable for the environment, but also for their wardrobe and their pockets. Yeah.
Any other myths? So I get the stigma. I get that, people think you come from a low socioeconomic background if you're renting, thrifting, or buying secondhand. There's the hygiene issue, as you mentioned. I know a lot of these places do strict quality control checks as well. And you can just wash it, you can dry clean it, whatever. So there is that. Are there any other myths? The whole thing not being sexy or fashionable?
Yeah, I mean, the list goes on for stigmas, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I think the top three that what you've mentioned, and I would add to that is there's a spiritual thing to secondhand, like passing on bad luck to whoever will wear that kind of thing. So
the previous owner's luck,
correct,
being passed on.
Especially it comes to shoes. So that's something that which is like for me, I didn't have this kind of myth, but hearing stories of what can we do as aside from washing. So there's, aspect to like, there's, I forgot the name of it, but like there's a cleansing way for you to get rid of the spirit. So, those are, yeah, it's a very kumbaya thing, but we respect and honor and hold space to that. But yeah, there could be those reasons why people don't try secondhand.
I had a friend on the other day on the podcast as well, and she said if people talk about these superstitions and energies that get passed on, what we're not talking about in fast fashion is energy of the workers that are slaving away to make your clothes. They're not happy about it. What about their energy that's stored in your clothes that are not made in an ethical way? And that really made sense. If you think of that, if you believe in these superstitions and if you believe in that energy, then why are you supporting that energy?
Yeah, and the idea also is like, come on, it's not just in fashion that we wear secondhand. Like, come to think of it, like if you go to hotels, like the bed sheets are like used from oh my god, you would not. And even like restaurants, the utensils are used by someone else, but it's washed. Why are we not questioning, and why we don't have those negative stigmas? It's just because fashion is a symbol of your status in the society. So I think that becomes the bias that we have. Hence, we have all this negative stigma as compared to the other things that is used secondhand. So I think we have to challenge that perspective.
Right about that. The bed sheets, especially the hotel bed sheets, if people knew.
The towels, Yeah.
As with everything in sustainability, I'm sure it's not easy to grow and scale a business in this space. What are the challenges that both of you have encountered and faced and overcome when it comes to growing and scaling and having physical spaces and launching for you in multiple countries as well, and growing that inventory, and for you having a physical permanent space and still keeping that growing and being the biggest one in what you do? What has that been like?
Wow. I think it's just when we speak about challenges, the list goes on. But I can pinpoint a few challenges that we have. Like, obviously, one is the awareness. So we've seen the growth for sure in the last 5 years, but it's been a slow, consistent growth. That is sometimes not enough for us to catch up to the expenses of running a physical shop in Singapore, especially with rental. So that has become like, we are hopeful because we've seen that growth, but at the same time, we're a bit pessimistic because it's not fast enough for us to catch up. And there's always going to be that kind of cycle. So that is one. And
it's like your revenue is growing, but your cost is growing even faster.
Yeah, exactly. So how do you balance that? Especially with the business like ours, we started because we wanted to somehow defy the current system. But because we are living in that current system and be part of it, we had to somehow operate in a way for us to sustain the purest perspective, which is also against somehow of that belief. So balancing the whole idea of commerce versus the idea that we can provide a new platform of fashion that does good is the biggest challenge for us, I would say. And I think in the beginning, when we were starting, in the first 2 years, we were purists because I think we didn't know any better. And that's how we have started. We wanted to, maximize the clothes that has been produced already. We don't want to have textile waste. And that was good for the first 2 years. And the third, fourth year, we have to see the numbers because essentially we have to be financially sustainable to keep sustaining the movement. And it's hard because you have to adopt practices that may not be, part of your values for you to sustain. Like, we would have partnerships that were not 100% sold out, but we have to do it for commerce. And I think that kind of balancing act is hard for us because I think big companies, when they when they are shifting towards a better fashion, they have a deep pocket to support that. But for us, when we started, it was in a purist perspective where doing good, and we didn't know
it's a
that
passion and the purpose that drives you.
and we didn't know that the purist perspective would cost a lot as well, because you have to rent, you have manpower, and everything else. So I think that's the two main challenge that we've always seen in the space, and trying to figure out on how we can navigate our way throughout.
Yeah. I think that's still up for debate, whether sustainability and ethics and compassion, whether they go hand in hand with capitalism and growth. I think that's a big one.
And where is the middle ground for both? Yeah.
What do you attribute your success to in that sense with all
I
the
think
challenges?
the community, because have they not showed up since day one, we will not be here, because they were the ones who supported us. Like when we started, the whole idea came about because of the people who we were serving, and how we had the physical shop is we did the crowdfunding campaign to start that, and we didn't sustain that because of the revenue that we are getting from the members. And every time we need something, we go to them, and they're really readily open to support. So I think, and they're like the champions. We've never did a paid advertisement, not because we don't want to, but because we cannot afford to. But because of the word of mouth of the people who patronize and see the value of the service, and that's why we are serving now over 6,000 members in the last 5 years. So I think it's really is the community. The power of the fashion pulpit relies in the community, in the people.
That's powerful. What about you? Challenges, overcoming them. How are you going strong? 6 years later? Is it 6 years in the 7 years?
Probably 7. I'm losing count now. I think at the very beginning, the challenge was more around, more internal. Like, am I doing something right? Like, will people really want this? I don't know myself too. And I was very new to the whole idea of sustainability. I didn't know that fashion brands were burning clothes until I spoke with a brand to convince them to give me their inventory, and they told me that they would rather burn it because Style Theory does not have a brand presence yet.
Why is that? Can you just talk about brands burning their collections?
I know.
How is that okay?
I think they're protecting the brand because they don't want it to end up on people that they don't feel like it's
associated.
They're associated with. So I think there is an element of that. And at that time, Style Theory was still very nascent. We barely had any branding, So I think the brands, they didn't want to pass us that close. But that was a mind-blowing moment. I was sitting in front of that person, and I think my jaw just dropped. I was like,
I think this again the emotion aspect to it, because the perception, if you do it on a sale, then it lowers the brand. If you give it to someone else who they don't want to be associated with, it lowers the brand. So expenses would go higher because they have to redeem the brand in that aspect. So
So
it's just,
so they would rather pay to burn the item. So I think that was the first point that I realized.
You said it was more ownership, like aesthetics, like who the brand is associated with. So they don't care about the lifespan of the product. No. It was more about who the products were going to be associated with.
Correct. Especially with the brands that have maybe higher, they're more prestigious and stuff like that. So I think at that point, it made me realize that I needed to build Style Theory up to help brands as well to understand what we are here to do. And I want Style Theory to be a partner of the brand, because Style Theory itself, like, we are not able to achieve anything just by ourselves. We rely a lot on our subscriber base who believes in us, who is ready to ride through all the difficult challenges with us, because we would have logistics issue. There was so many infrastructural stuff in Singapore that was not ready for a rental platform. We are basically like Netflix, but for fashion in physical goods. So I can't just deliver to you through your TV screen. I actually have to physically deliver it to you. And then when the item comes back, I have to wash the item, I have to maintain the item, I have to get someone to check through the item. That, in a sort of fast fashion model, they don't really have to check through every single piece every single time it comes back. So for us, well, because probably it doesn't come back or they don't sell. But for a rental company, I think that just the infrastructure in reverse logistics setting up at the very beginning, I think we have to even bring in our own fleet to be able to do that. We build out our own operational management system because there was none in the market that allows us to do what we do. So
the return and the pickup, you mean? Because every system is so linear. You use and you discard it, and that's it. It goes to the trash. But for you to use something and have it sent back to the sender.
Yeah, and then come back and collect the data on that and understand what kind of inputs we need. And then how do we actually allow people to pick the items in a certain way where they could rent and the items are expected to come back. I think all these different sort of technological platform we have to build from scratch. None out there was actually ready for us to use. Now 7 years in, I think there are some, but they are still at beta stage in Europe. So you can see how nascent the entire sort of industry is. And I think that is one of the biggest challenges that we have to invest a lot of cost in building up all this infrastructure. That if I'm just going to go into e-commerce, I have everything ready. I just plug and play. I just need my goods. I plug it in. Amazon can fulfill my warehousing as well. Everything can be done. But for Style Theory, we have to build everything in-house. We have to get our own warehousing. And it just keeps expanding because we have to accommodate more and more clothes for more and more user. And then having to do that across multiple regions, that became another challenge because all this region, they also don't have the infrastructure. So we ended up having to really rebuild a lot, have very close partnership with our dry cleaning partner as well, because they are not used to someone dry cleaning at the volume that we are dry cleaning at. So, yeah.
Let's talk about that, the energy. The amount of energy that it would take for the outfit to be transported back, logistics, the amount of energy it would take for the outfit to be dry cleaned. Does that outweigh buying a new outfit?
I think that's something that a lot of people have questions on. Like, what is more sustainable? Is buying something new versus if I keep renting and then all this energy that goes into maintaining this item. So, well, I think cost-wise, rental, the way of rental is definitely more expensive now just because the infrastructure, the technology is still not up to speed yet as how mature like the entire e-commerce selling way is. In terms of energy, I think there's a few big companies in US that has commissioned the study to actually see whether does it make sense to actually produce an item and then go through the entire logistics chain and then burning the item or burying it compared to renting, including all the logistic and dry cleaning. And I think the energy comparison was very obvious that rental is still way ahead in terms of like how much energy we actually consume. We consume so much lesser than producing an item. And I think people underestimate how much it takes to produce an item. Like the amount of water, the amount of manpower, the amount of like resources that is being generated to actually produce that item and the waste that comes with that if it's not sold. I think there was a study commissioned as well that actually mentioned that 30 to 40% of all the inventory produced, they're actually not even sold. So they're not even going through the supply chain into the retail store, into people's wardrobe and ending up in landfill. And we already have so much in landfill. So can you imagine the entire ecosystem that has been existing in that fast fashion world is just generating so much waste, comparing to rental or swapping or secondhand fashion where the item actually stays in the ecosystem. So overall, you just produce a lot less and you are utilizing what has already been produced to just keep going in the ecosystem itself. Yeah.
I'd love to know more about the demographic of both of your companies. Who are the users? Let's talk about age groups. Are there frequent visitors? Do you see new customers walking in? What does the demographic look like?
My demographic is a little bit, I think, mostly millennials. So I would say that they are aged 25 to like 40 years old. So they tend to have a pretty stable income, they are in the workforce for like maybe 2 to 3 years. And then that's when they feel like, I think I'm ready to graduate from fast fashion. I think I could vote with my dollars and I want to spend better. I think that's the kind of like customer segment that we are seeing today.
Yeah, that's the best kind of graduation from fast fashion university to the master's diploma that you get in sustainable fashion is the best kind of graduation. graduation.
Agreed. Yeah, I think for us, when we were starting, we have the same demographic. But as we were growing or as we continue operating the business, we have noticed that we're no longer about the demographic. So it was more of this psychographic, which means that our customer that we were serving goes beyond to the age group that we have, the skin color, the educational background, and what ties or bonds these people is actually the value that we wanted to promote, which is to love fashion, but at the same time do not damage the environment and abuse the people. So we have now swappers from 16 years old to 60,
A lot of Gen
which is
Z, Gen Z
which
shoppers.
Gen Zs and even the baby boomers. So we have that kind of diverse customer because they believe in the same value, and that makes exciting because it means that you will be having clothes from the 60 years old that you can actually style it to be Gen Z.
That's so
So
cool.
the idea is really to have no biases in terms of what fashion is all about, but it's how you make it. So that becomes like, I think, the beautiful thing that we can see in terms of like who the people swaps.
Psychographic, you said.
Yeah.
I love that. Value graphic and psychographic over
Yeah.
demographic. Can I dive deeper into your business models? If you'd be willing to share how you operate and how Style Theory operates as well. What is Fashion Pulpit's business model?
So are pretty much similar because we are both membership based subscription. So how it does for us is like you sign up for a membership depending on what works for us. So we have different tiers, and once you're a member, you come in, you bring your clothes that are in good condition, and we assist them. And the assessment will be based on the quality, style, and brand, and the swappability of the item. And from there, you will earn points. So we have a points that we assign to each item, and the points becomes then our currency in the shop for them to use to buy whatever they would want. So and they can return it or they can keep it, whatever they would want to do, because whatever that comes into us, it owns by the Fashion Pulpit, and whatever they swapped out, it's owned by them. So that's essentially how the swap works for
Very
us.
cool. So that's swapping.
Yeah,
Which is coming in with something that you have and walking away with something else that's new and unique.
correct. Yeah.
Yeah, and the fact that you can, get so many unique clothes, I think is another myth busted,
Right.
It's
Yeah.
like actually swapping.
And that's the joy
can be
because
so
you're
fashionable.
never going to walk into an event or a party wearing the exact same thing that someone else is wearing.
Yeah.
And that's what happens quite a lot
The
with
idea.
fast fashion brands and them mass producing things. Someone else is going to have that exact same, shirt or those same pants. And I don't know what's cool about
Yeah.
that. But with
And
swapping
the
secondhand.
beauty in Singapore, it's very much international. So we have members who are coming in from different parts of the world who owns a local fashion shop in wherever they're coming from. And then when they decide to swap it, you then had an access to that, which you don't require to travel to get that kind of clothes. So it becomes really exciting for you to see that global wardrobe in flesh.
So cool.
Yeah. So for Style Theory, we are a subscription platform. So people subscribe to us whether for apparel or for luxury bags. We carry.
You were the first one to come up with bag rental.
Yes, we are.
Right?
We are.
Yeah, because clothing rental was still normal.
Yep.
But to come up with luxury bag rental, I think you were the first one in the market.
Very smart.
Yeah.
And super fun, right? Because I use it too, and it's and you get to experiment with different bags. And some bags, when you wear it, you're like, oh, this is too heavy for me, like let me swap with a smaller bag. So I think for our platform today, we work with over 200 plus designers from all across the world, and we actually onboard a lot of the designers from, say, Korea, Japan, Turkey. I think we have some from like Romania as well. So really bringing in a lot of different designs that you would otherwise not be able to find in the Singapore market, because these are very small designers and they wouldn't have the financial capability to actually set up shop here in Singapore. So for us, I think when we brought them all in, using the kind of like international freight network that we have set up, it allows the user here to actually experience all this different kind of design. And I think one of the things that one of the subscribers told me was that as she was going through pregnancy and then after that motherhood, she realized that her size kept changing throughout the entire journey. And that's just a very sort of short 1 year for her, but she has upsize and downsize throughout. So style theory has really helped her because she could just change her size, as and when. And there's no, you don't have to hold yourself accountable to any size. And I think one of the wardrobe issues that a lot of women has is they tend to keep clothes in the wrong sizes that they no longer can fit in or, are too big for them and they just hold on to it.
Wanting to, lose that weight and
one day I'm going to get
one day I'm going to fit into that and then that day never comes.
Yeah, right. So I think having this cloud wardrobe allows you with so much freedom to experiment with styles, with different designer brands, with their each individual brand stories, with different sizes, with different kind of look that you need to present because in the society today, our women are very social. They are mothers, they are, they can be entrepreneurs, they are career women, they are, daughter-in-laws. So there's a lot of hat that they are wearing, and having this flexibility allow them to dress up to be the kind of woman that they need to be in all these kind of situations. And I think that is the magic that we want to continue to create, to really partner women in every stage of their life, in any roles that they have to actually play.
What about men? Does style theory have
So we thought about it. We have so many requests from the wives saying that, hey, my husband wants this too. Can you do that for my husband? And we started actually a small pilot group of asking men what is their fashion issue. And most men doesn't really have the need to constantly change clothes, but they need someone to help them to tell them what to wear. So they're not very good at, figuring out what looks good on them and stuff, and they hate ironing. So that's one thing that they just don't want to do. So for
that
us,
applies to both. I think that's common across gender. We don't have
increasingly so, yes. Yeah. So for us, I think that if we're going to design a service for men, it will not look like what style theory is offering today, but something a little bit different for men. We did thought about working on it, but I think for now we'll focus on catering to the women better.
Okay, makes sense. I mean, if that's the growing, and a lot of the advertisements also targeted towards us that we need to have this and we need to have that. One key thing that changed the way that I shopped was this question that I read that you should always ask before you buy something. And that was, am I going to wear this 33 times? Because you apparently need to wear it at least 33 times for it to derive the full value out of that outfit. And that really changed the way that I shopped. Is there any advice that you have when it comes to shopping mindfully and what individuals can do better?
So that's usually the advice I tell people, are you gonna wear this again? And I think if the answer is no, then just rent it, or borrow it, even if you don't want to rent it, borrow it, don't buy it. Any other advice?
Just how we can be more mindful shoppers, more conscious shoppers. How can we tap into sustainable fashion if we don't know anything about it?
So today there are a lot of ways to be part of the ecosystem, even if you feel like your fashion consumption lifestyle might not be swapping, might not be thrifting, might not be renting. You could also be a contributor to it. So for example, on our platform today, most of our luxury bags are actually not from style theory. So it's actually from people's wardrobe. So they are all sitting in their wardrobe doing nothing. So what they did was they put the bags on our platform and we rent it out for them. So every time it rents out, we kind of share the revenue with them.
You still have 2 of my bags on your platform. I left it in 2019. You still have it on your platform.
And then you earn a passive income on something that when you bought, you think, this is an asset. Now we make it into a true asset for women who is actually not really utilizing that bag. So I think for us, the goal is to figure out how can we do that for more apparel as well, so that we could actually capture more of the supply in the market that's already there and bring it into the ecosystem. But that takes a lot of logistics and operations and infrastructure in play. So we're still trying to figure out how we can actually make that happen in the next 10 years. That was a big one
for me because that was a perfect solution for me when I went vegan. Because I no longer wanted to use my leather bags. They didn't align with who I was anymore. But what do? Do you let them rot? Do you, give it away? and to just have it up on that platform if it aligns with someone else, and they can use it. But, it's not unsustainable at the same time because it's still being used. So that was a good balance for me between choosing between those two values and not having to go with my non-negotiables. So that was very cool.
Wow, we'll use that for the next marketing.
I'm giving you all these ideas. Would you like to add anything to that?
I mean, I think the challenge is that fashion, or in general, the conversation is always to look solution outside, rather than of like discovering a potential solution in what's inside already. And because oftentimes in fashion conversation, the whole idea is like we need to buy our way into sustainability. So oftentimes that's the conversation of like, for you to be sustainable, you need to look for products that are sustainable, buy new things. But most of the time, the most sustainable product is already what we have in our wardrobe. So that's usually our first advice for everyone. Do you want to be sustainable? Well, look what you have in your wardrobe, because you will be surprised on how much what you can do in what you already own. So I think that's the first one that we would always tell them what to do.
Repeat your outfit. That's the advice. Repeat your outfit. It's okay.
That's a big one. Yeah. Just normalizing that, making it okay, making it cool.
Yeah, celebrities are repeating their gowns now on like the galas and stuff. So
love to see that.
Yeah. So repeat your outfit, everyone.
As you mentioned, the most sustainable option is what's already in your wardrobe. And both your businesses promote circularity and they don't directly promote consumption. But this argument that I hear often is that if we were to all stop shopping, what would happen to the artisans? What would happen to the industry? What would happen to people whose lives depend on this? How do we balance using what we have, not buying and not consuming, and supporting the economy or supporting the livelihoods?
Yeah, the funny thing is the biggest consumption is actually not from the artisans people as well. Today the biggest consumption is actually fast fashion. So when people need to really rethink about their consumption, is really rethink about majority of their spends, which is on fast fashion today. And I think that if people are more conscious about what they are buying, people are gonna be buying better quality item. The artisans like industry is actually gonna thrive better. You're actually gonna support them more because their items are more well crafted. They are not gonna be as cheap, but they'll be better quality. They will have a better story. They are built around a woman, maybe in the boardroom, or a woman, trying to take care of her kids. So the outfit is meant for, are meant for the occasion that the designer thought about. So I think that people tend to kind of mix everything into a bucket and be like, oh, I'm not going to try this because it's going to lead to that problem. But I think if you really look back at it, like cut the kind of consumption today that is frivolous, right? That is really inconsequential to your life today. You don't need that extra consumption pushed forward by all the marketing campaigns. So I don't think that it will really affect the artisan negatively. In fact, it's going to help them as we work with them to actually publicize their product better, publicize their product more and introduce better quality and the idea of paying for better quality to people.
Yeah. So stopping consumption doesn't have to mean that they lose out. Yeah.
And I think to add on to that is that every time we have like a problem or a challenge, we always looked at it in a linear way. So very extremes. It's either you're A or B. There's nothing in between, which means that, you either consume sustainably and not buy fast fashion, or you just buy fast fashion and that's the solution. They cannot coexist. And we need to consider that we are in a transition period where we're trying to adjust and change the behavior that we had that is causing the damage. And we don't know the answer yet, but we have different platforms and alternatives that can somehow sustain us to the next step. So I think I hate to say it, but I think firsthand consumption would not end, but there is a better way to do that. And the alternative ways to consumption as well is not here to take away the first-hand consumption. It's here to provide that gap between the two for us to be able to get to the next step. So I think it should coexist, and we just need to know our way into that.
Off topic, but you co-founded Style Theory with your husband, right?
Mm.
What is it like working with your husband?
Tough. No.
People tell you don't ever mix relationships and business, but you've been going at it for 7 years.
Yeah.
What's that journey been like for you working with your partner?
I think it has its pros and cons. We have been on a lot of different projects together before Style Theory. So we work on a lot of smaller businesses before. So I think in terms of like working style, conflict resolution, I think all those are not very different whether I work with him or I work with someone else. I think the tough part is when it comes to personal life where we cannot take vacation days together. So we cannot travel together anymore. You know, I think that's tough
a big
part.
one.
Yeah, that's really difficult. So we really have to make a lot of arrangement to make like that few days happen. So I think for the first like 4 years of Style Theory, we didn't even take a vacation at all or take any Sundays off. So it was like 7 days, 24 hours a day.
So the work bleeds into personal life.
It does. And it really goes into every conversation. And we realize we are just work partners, So I think it takes a lot of conscious effort to kind of draw the line. And to say, hey, like dinner time is no work, space. So I think we learned along the way.
Have you reclaimed that? Have you
Yes, we
reclaimed
have.
the relationship out of it, out of the work partnership?
Yes, we have. I think the easy part is that we get to talk to each other very frankly and very openly without having to PR your words like you would have to if you have a co-founder, right?
Yeah,
And
that is true.
And sometimes maybe we could even just be like, hey, I think you really suck at that talk, And it's just like really frank talk. And then he's like, yeah, I think so. Yeah. What do you think I should do? Right. But with someone else, you'll be like, hey, I think you did well in this, but maybe not so much in that. There's a lot
no
more
filtering.
time. Yeah. So I think that's the good thing with working with each other is that it's like unabashed, like, let's go.
If you're fighting at home, does that translate into fighting at work?
We try to not let it come. So for us, it will be, I think because both of us, we used to work in a professional setting. So when we come to work, for us, it was that professional hat. So that was not the difficult part. The part was like when it goes to work to personal, that was the hard transition.
Yeah. And you have a baby as well.
Yeah, now I have 2 kids. So trying to balance out, how we're going to do that and then still grow this baby. Yeah.
Grow 3 babies at the
same time.
Yeah. So your consensus is that it's okay to work with a partner, and it's been okay for you overall.
We would not recommend that to most people because it is challenging. But I think it's doable and it does have its benefits.
If you are working with a partner, what are the non-negotiables? What is one thing that you do differently? What are a couple of things that you do differently, knowing what you know now, 7 years into the journey?
Yeah. I think definitely set very clear boundaries on where is work and where is not. Set very clear schedule as well and align also financially how that is going to be, because when you are into building a business, you are not going to get paid well, In fact, I think the first person that's not going to get paid when it comes to COVID times is going to be you. And if you have both of you guys are in it, then who is going to pay for all the bills at home? So I think there's a lot of all these financial aspects that needs to be worked out as well. So I think do that, set boundaries, and then after that, figure out your support system. So we have a really good support system here in Singapore. So if I'm going to be doing the exact same thing in Canada, I don't think it will work because we don't have our family and friends network there. So here, I think if you can figure out your support system, then I think it will work. Yeah.
Okay. So key advice working with partners, setting boundaries and having a support system.
Yeah, figure out your finances as well.
On figuring out finances, big one.
Yeah.
Are you working with a partner as well? You're flying solo.
Yeah, flying solo for now.
What's that like? Would you miss having a co-founder? Would you want to have a co-founder?
I mean, I had a co-founder before, but it didn't really work out well. Now that I'm a solo founder, there's definitely perks to it, but at the same time, it's a bit lonely. Like in my first 2 years, that was so fine. Like I was like, oh, who said it's lonely? It's not lonely to be a sole founder. But in the next 3-4 years, then I've understood that advice that at some point it's going to be lonely because you don't have someone to express your idea, because it's so different when you are expressing it to like a colleague or a teammate or even to a friend who doesn't really understand the whole concept, context of that specific situation. Because if you have a partner, both of you are in that page. So, comments and perspective is pretty much in line. But, you just have to do what you have to do, I guess. For now, I don't have the need to have a partner, but I see the
Are we
perks.
talking business or romantic?
Both. But in business, yeah.
Yeah. I wish there was an app where you could like find a dating partner and a co-founder at the same time. If that worked, at least like a matching platform would work great for me. Very
Well,
cool.
there is actually.
There is an app for
it's-
matching founders.
It's more like entrepreneurs, like, but off the topic. Raya, so it's really is more about.
I'm on Raya, but
then
that's dating.
dating.
No?
Oh, okay, sorry.
Are
It's
you
for
using it
business?
for business?
No, I'm not. But if we were talking about partners, but
Okay.
for business, it's
Business.
there
No,
is
it's
a
not.
one.
There
Yeah.
isn't. Style Theory, another subscription.
that could be a good
Suggesting.
idea.
The married co-founders start another subscription for other married partners who
And then
want to
we'll
find
list down,
co-founders.
right? Are you guys financially stable on your own? Like all the criteria.
Yeah, all the
check,
criteria.
check.
That'd be a great
Match.
one.
Yeah.
What drives both of you in this industry, knowing how hard it is? Is it the impact? What is the impact? And have you measured it, quantified that impact?
There's always small anecdotal stuff that you hear, right? But I think when you see the numbers of how, Style Theory, across the multiple regions we're in, we have facilitated over 2.3 million rentals.
2.3 million rentals.
Yeah, across, and with blood, sweat, and tears. But we did do that. And that actually translates to roughly around 600,000 items not going into the landfill prematurely. And I think that drives the team as well to know that if we keep doing this, we're helping to save more and more items from going into the landfill.
It's bigger than you.
Yeah. I think the whole thing that it's bigger than you, now I understand that, because when I started this, it was a personal dream. And that transitioned to a bigger responsibility, because now we have over 6,000 members who uses the service and have saved about 350,000 clothes out from the landfill. And there are moments when I don't want to do this anymore. It's just like so hard. But the comments that you will get, or the feedbacks that you will get, and of how the service has changed them and how it adds value to them, it's like, you know what? This is bigger than me anymore. I cannot just rely on those emotions that I have right now, because I have a bigger responsibility to play. So I think that what keeps us going, the responsibility and the value that we have created for the members that we have now.
The community, the love.
Yeah.
What does fashion mean to both of you individually?
Oh, that's a good question.
You live, sleep, eat, breathe fashion. What does fashion mean to you personally?
Wow, that's really a good question. No one really asked me about, what fashion means to me now. I mean, I think because it would constantly evolve to something, but I think in my 5 years journey into what I'm doing now, I think I've realized that fashion is my platform to empower people. And I think that what it means to me now, because I have seen, like, even with my teammates and the people that patronize the service, it becomes a platform for them to be empowered, and that goes beyond to dressing up. And that's something that I have realized that is something that is powerful, and that's something that cannot be bought. So I think that's what fashion is all about to me now. Empowerment.
That's beautiful.
So fashion for me at the very beginning, or all along, has always been a form of expression. I love how fashion can make someone feel. You can see someone feeling more confident or not, just by the way that they are dressing. But I think today the fashion has evolved so much for me. Now fashion for me is a mission. So I think now that I have a bigger picture of like what exactly is going on, I know people like Raye, and a lot of other people who are fighting alongside to make the world a better place. I just feel like even on days that I don't want to express myself, I don't want to dress up, I just feel like I have to keep going, because fashion now is a mission, and I'm doing this for my kids as well, because I want to make sure they can see giraffes in their lifetime, I want to make sure that they can see the ocean in their lifetime. So So yeah, so I think fashion has definitely evolved into a mission.
That's what drives you, empowering people and leaving a better place for your kids.
Yeah.
What does sustainability mean for you? Or what does sustainable fashion mean to you outside of fashion?
Wow. These deep questions. I think for me, again, I would always relate it to what I'm doing. I think sustainability for me it's not about of what you have, but it's what you do with what you have. And this is a great testament with the people that, again, patronize the service. They choose to give their clothes because they know that some people would make use out of it. So again, it's not something about like, sure, I have 1,000 pieces of X amount of clothes. It's not about that, but it's what you do with that 1,000 clothes that you have. And that's something that it becomes more of what just sustainability is. So I think for me, that what it means now.
I think sustainability, at least for me personally, is a choice. It's like, do you want to be morally upright? That's a choice. Do you want to be vegetarian? That's a choice. For me, being sustainable is also a choice that people have to make. And with every choice, there will be sacrifices. There will be times where you are not proud of, what you're doing, even though, you made a certain choice. Like for me, sometimes I go to the supermarket and I forgot my recyclable bag. And I'm just like, oh shit, now I have to actually buy plastic bag because I can't hold this myself. And those are times I'll remind myself, okay, next time let's do this. Let's set an SOP around it. And I think that sustainability is that journey of choices that you make every day, right? And there are times where you can fail, you will fail. But I think more importantly is then what do you do? What do you choose next, right? And that's important. Yeah.
Thank you for everything that you're doing to make the world a better, more sustainable place. And I cannot wait for your businesses to not just be the biggest ones in Southeast Asia, which they already are, but to be bigger all across the globe. I just want you guys to keep going and keep growing bigger and bigger and
we'll try our best.
Positive dent in the world, which you're doing already. Thank you.
Thank you.
I stumble in the beginning. I'm warning you in the beginning. Just letting you know we might have to do 3-4
It makes me feel more
Yeah, that's true. That's it.
Climate change, woohoo. Is stalwarts the right word? It is the right word, right?
Yes, sir.
Stalwart?
Yes.
That means like what I think it means. It's like a change maker.
Stalwart is somebody like solid, dependable. I think.
I'm so glad we're recording this. Like the host forgets English. You moved for the space?
Yeah, for school and then started
he loves
here.
the weather here.
List of reasons why you moved to Singapore. Number 1, weather. Whose list is that? Nobody's.
But me.
I'm sure you're going to come back here a lot more
Oh,
times.
of course.
Yeah.
Of course. It's SG also. It's like my initials. It's like...
Oh.
I always get that I heart SG shirt. That's like narcissism to the max. Like, just compose myself and I'll begin. We've got to... wow. Lost my voice. What is going on? I'm not like this, I promise.
It's the weather. I'm telling you, it's the weather.
Almost that 20 because it's that weather. It's me, I'm the problem, it's me.